What is up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the UNC Basketball Show brought to you by TarHeelIllustrated.com. I'm THI staff writer Jacob Turner. Joining me as he always does is our very own publisher, Andrew Jones. And AJ, we're here for in some ways, a pretty jam-packed episode because we got a lot of things we're going to be hitting on. And I want to start first with the news that broke about DeMarco Dunn last week, announcing he is transferring from North Carolina. So for the sake of diving right into this topic, AJ, let's do just that. Give me your thoughts on Dunn's transfer and maybe what it could potentially mean for North Carolina moving forward.
Well, it was one thing. We didn't do a pod on this last week because you were on your honeymoon. So congratulations on your wedding.
Guys.
Thanks,
man.
It was a beautiful
I got a lot of love on
service.
Twitter too and social media. So just if anybody's watching that did say something or like the photos that AJ posted, appreciate you guys a lot, man. It means a lot.
I was tweeting on site, man. I know, man. Tweeting out
you can't
on site.
No matter where you're at, AJ, you can't take the journalist out of you, man. You were documenting that thing as good as anybody. So I appreciate it.
It was a wonderful ceremony. I was honored to be there. So
I appreciate it, man. Glad you could be there too, man. I appreciate that.
It was funny how immediately the reaction was, oh, this must mean Elliot Cadeau's coming. Mm-hmm. But let me kind of take people down a different path here. DeMarco had spent the previous month working out with the team. They've been doing a lot of workouts. And perhaps he recognized that he wasn't going to get on the floor that much, or he'd have no larger a role than he had last year, maybe even less of a role, given who they brought in. So he obviously wants to play. He's got 2 years of eligibility left. He came in after COVID, so he doesn't have a COVID year. Guys that have COVID years, they can maybe stick around one more year and see how things go and ultimately get that year back. He doesn't have that luxury, although I hope the NCAA sooner rather than later kicks in the fifth year, which I do believe that it will in time. But it'd be better for the kids that came in right after COVID to get that year as well. So hopefully they'll do that, and he'll have 3 more years. As it is, he has 2 more. He wants to play. He's had a ton of schools reach out right away. I think that he would be a nice pickup for a lot of schools. I would like to see him go somewhere where he's on the court a lot. I don't know if that would be at a Power 5. I don't know if that'd be an upper echelon Power 5, maybe a mid-tier Power 5. But this was not about Elliot Cadeau. So people need to understand. It was not about him. It was about DeMarco Dunn. And quite frankly, I was surprised he didn't move before. I wrote a DeMarco Dunn transfer piece March 12th. And it just sat in admin. It sat in admin so long, I had forgotten about it. So when he did hit the portal, I wrote a new piece and totally forgot I had the first one already written. So he's going to end up at a pretty good school, and it'll be kind of fun to follow his progress wherever he goes. But it was not about that. There's just too many guys there. There's a log jam back there. You've got Wilcher coming in. You got RJ. You got Cormac Ryan. You got Paxton Wojcik who could play 2 as well. He was the last guy in that group. You also got Seth Trimble in that room. Seth's a better defender. Seth can be a backup point if they want to play him there. I think Seth's got more of an upside to his game. He's a better athlete, simply more talented. So he was the last guy in the room. So he made a decision that most people watching and listening right now would have made as well, and that's to move on for himself. He got 2 years at Carolina. He'll always be a Tar Heel, but that window closes pretty quickly in college athletics. So one of the great things about the portal and instant eligibility is it gives a lot of guys an opportunity to go find a better situation. And that's exactly what he's done. To me, the portal was designed for guys like DeMarco Dunn.
Yeah, 100% agree. And I do think he'll go have a nice career somewhere else, because I do think he is a good player, and, staying healthy and just going somewhere where he can get on the court more, I think is going to be a huge benefit to him. Let's talk about the roster as it is right now, because obviously I think one of the reasons that you mentioned, kind of the narrative that went on, okay, Dunn decommits, so that obviously means Cadeau is coming in. And you look at Carolina has 3 scholarship available right now. So you would expect Carolina to add somebody in some respect. So when you look at the roster as it is right now, I think Carolina does have a really nice kind of they've got some experience in there. They've got guys that are proven in the ACC, and they've got guys that have also been around the program for a while, like RJ Davis, Armando Bacon, and obviously some young talent with some of the freshmen coming in as well. So talk to me about, because I think Carolina's roster as it is right now is fine, but there are some scholarships available. So talk to me about how maybe that could play out over the next weeks to a few months.
So the roster is now, or what might happen with those 3 scholarships?
Well, let's talk about the roster as it is first, and then we can I think it's
a roster that could win a ton of games. And I think it's a roster that would be built to stick around for a while in March.
Mm-hmm.
You've got a lot of older guys, smart guys, heady guys. You've got some shooters. You've got guys who are used to having the ball in their hands.
Mm-hmm.
Think about RJ, point guard in the Final Four, national title game. Cormac Ryan used to having the ball in his hands. Paxton Wodrick used to having the ball in his hands as a wing a lot of assists from the wing spot. You've got Simeon Wilcher coming in, who is a combo guard. He's a guy that can take it to the rack from the top of the key, can take it to the rack from the shooting guard spot or even the wing. So you've got guys that are used to having the ball in their hands, Seth Trimble as well. So you've got a lot of guys who are competent on the perimeter with doing more than just being one-trick ponies. And when you look at all of their histories as players, they don't have stretches where they shoot their teams out of games, mm-hmm. where they try to do too much and at the disregard of others and kind of screw things up for the team. So you don't have that. You have, I think, a group that's going to be really well connected. It may take some time because there's so much newness, but I really like what that perimeter can provide. If you think about UConn's perimeter in winning a national title, I think Carolina's perimeter next year could match up with that as far as the effectiveness. Then when you look at the rest of the roster, inside you've got Armando. I think he's going to have a sensational year because he's going to have a lot more help. I'm really intrigued by Jalen Withers, really intrigued by Harrison Ingram, how they can play off each other. Yeah, David did a really good film review about Harrison Ingram and how Stanford had him on the ball a lot, and he's an unselfish player. One of the things I really like about him is that Stanford had struggled scoring, had tough time scoring at times. They weren't supremely talented. There was a better player on the team as far as production goes, but Harrison could have easily said, hey, guys, I'm the 5-star. I'm the guy who could have been a lottery pick. I'm going to take over and do things. And he didn't. He averaged 9.2 shot attempts a game. So that tells me that he's totally invested in team and enjoys playing off of one another. And that's what David talked about in his film review. And if you watch Stanford games, that's what you saw. So
AJ, by the way, let me chime in real quick. I hate to cut you off. Let me just acknowledge how great David's film reviews are. I love them, man. I think they're fantastic. I really do. I had to throw that in there. I shout him out on Twitter a lot, but I don't think I've ever done it on a podcast. If you're a Carolina basketball fan, you want to know more about players and games and how it works out, kind of X's and O's, you got to go watch his film reviews, man. They're fantastic. Sorry to cut you off. His one on Harrison Ingram is the best one he's done. It's fantastic. Because sometimes with guys, it's really easy to do the scoring or a couple key defensive plays. What he did with Harrison Ingram is he laid out exactly why he's going to fit, why he's going to mesh. So if his level as an individual player is here, we don't know exactly what it is. I think we'll see more of it at Carolina. But if this is what we've seen, just becoming a member of the Carolina team and playing with more talent, his level will be up here. Absolutely. He'll be a better player there, which I think Jalen Withers will as well. Similar situation. So even with Ingram, he's a wing player, is used to having the ball in his hands. I should have added him in there too. So and then up front with you got Withers, you've got Jalen Washington, who's highly skilled, but he's still a ways away. Mm-hmm. People should not expect Jalen to be a 35-minute-a-game guy next year based on where things stand right now. He's still got to get a lot stronger. He's still got to get tougher. He's still got to learn to play off contact, play through contact. He's got to learn to defend with his body down on the block a little bit more, use that midsection to keep guys out. He doesn't want to allow players to just turn and score over him all the time. So there's a lot of improvement for him to do this offseason. And it may be his junior year when he really, really breaks out. Although I think he could be quite effective, certainly in situations this coming season, which brings me here in a minute to what they are looking to do to add to the roster. So I think they're pretty good up front. I like the athletic ability. They do need more up front behind Armando. But if you think about, let's say Armando doesn't get hurt, and he gives them 34 minutes a game throughout the entire season, and is rarely ever in foul trouble, I think that they have the composition of a roster that can do a lot of damage. Yeah, I think they can rebound from this season, provided that they have the right approach and that they do a very good job of scouting and that there's really good chemistry in that room and all that. This is a roster composition of a team that could achieve some significant things, no doubt about it. Completely agree. I couldn't agree more. I do really like the mix. And obviously, as we get closer to the season and deeper in the offseason, we'll break down the roster and individual players a little bit more. AJ, before we move on to kind of how this, maybe what's next for this team and what you can expect maybe coming in, I want to give a shout out to our sponsor. We'll talk about them towards the end a little bit more as well. MyPerfectFranchise.net, guys. If you're in the corporate world looking to find maybe a little side hustle, AJ, maybe you're in the corporate world and you're just looking to get out of it. Heck, maybe you're fresh out of college. Maybe you're just trying to switch career paths, don't want to work for the man anymore, want to be your own boss. That's what MyPerfectFranchise.net can do for you. Andy Ludicky, founder and owner, been a Rivals member for over 22 years, AJ. This is a guy that lives and breathes college football, college basketball, massive Texas fan. And he's just a seasoned veteran franchise owner who decided, despite, all the wealth and stuff he's made, to give back and try to help others, just like he did years ago, switch career paths and become a franchise owner. So many different types of franchises you can open and own. And he's just a fantastic person to guide you along the whole process. And if you don't make money, AJ, he doesn't make any money either. So I think that's just a fantastic thing that he's doing. If you want to learn more, go listen to the 2 podcasts linked below. You can learn more about Andy and what he does with his business. You can also check him out, MyPerfectFranchise.net. Again, we'll hit on it a little bit towards the end as well, but I just want to give a quick shout out to our sponsor, MyPerfectFranchise.net. Contact Andy, put your life and career in your own hands, start your own thing, open your own franchise, become your own boss. You can do that with him. All links below. Go check those out after this podcast is done.
Let me throw something in real fast about Andy. And it's not like Subways and McDonald's. No. His two franchise businesses that he's made a lot of money on are dumpsters and porta potties.
Who would have thought, right?
Look around. There's a franchise.
Yeah, literally. Yeah. Just go drive around for 2 minutes. Go to a busy area of wherever.
The guy who made these is worth a crap load of money.
It's crazy, man. It's crazy, man. It's amazing what you can open. I mean, I learned so much. I'm
just looking around my office right now and seeing all kinds of things. People make a
it's unbelievable.
And you could be
like I said, you drive around for 5 minutes, you'll probably see 20 franchises depending on where you live. I mean, it's just how it works. So, guys, again, check them out, MyPerfectFranchise.net. So many different types of opportunities and different things you can dive into as well. So you can things you haven't even thought about, you can open a franchise for. So again, check them out and you'll learn a lot more about that. Let's talk about kind of the last thing I want to hit on is kind of what this roster could look like moving forward. I did mention there's some scholarships available, reclassification rumors swirling around, AJ. What are your thoughts and what kind of, I guess maybe not your thoughts, what kind of intel or insight can you give us on potentially how this roster could, shape up in the next, like I said, few weeks to your next few months?
Well, very well sourced. We know that they would love to find someone who could come in and back up Armando.
Yeah.
So in the day and age of portal, NIL, and look at me, it's going to be difficult and has been difficult finding someone who is okay with going into a program like this, which in and of itself is an amazing experience. It's part of what drew Brady Manick in. It's part of what drew Cormac Ryan in. To have a reserve role 6 to 8 minutes behind someone like Baycott, where you're not going to get much glory, and then maybe gets in foul trouble, you play some. He tweaks the ankle again, you play some, but there's no guarantees with either one of those things. So it's hard in this day and age to find someone who would be willing to do that and someone who'd be good enough to do it. It's sort of like with the offensive line in football. They'd love to bring in some offensive linemen, but can you get some guys that are good enough to come in and play a rotation role? It's very difficult because they're not selling this kid what a lot of schools are probably selling him. They're telling him the truth, 6 to 8 minutes. So it's going to be difficult to do. There are some guys out there that they may have to take a stab on one of them and just say, okay, maybe we wouldn't have recruited him out of high school, but he serves a purpose, and they have 3 scholarships to give, so they can afford to bring in somebody like that who, if he's healthy and can just do the basics, defend, rebound, set screens, that he would be worthy of bringing in and help them out. That's priority number 1. That would probably surprise some people, but that is priority number 1. Priority number 2, it depends on what some people want to do. But by and large, I think that they have a pretty good idea of what those people want to do. And I'm not sure that they'll add anybody in those scenarios. Elliot Cadeau obviously is one. on our boards, David has had some really good intel that he's dropped the last couple of days about Elliot. He will see Elliot next weekend, Memorial Day weekend in Memphis. He's going to be there for 4 days at an EYBL event, and he plans on talking to Elliot. And I'll allow that to play itself out. But I'll reiterate, DeMarco Dunn hitting the portal had nothing to do with Elliot Cadeau. Elliot Cadeau is in a different situation. He's a guy that wants to play. He's a guy that wants to be a starting point guard. Carolina has a starting point guard in R.J. Davis. We talked about logjam in the backcourt with DeMarco Dunn. Well, Elliot Cadeau isn't going to thin that out because nobody else can leave now. So there are, as much as Carolina fans want to bring him in right away, and you can't pass up on a guy who passes the ball like cross between Ed Cota and Kendall Marshall, sometimes more isn't better. So there are a lot of decisions that have to be made from a Cadeau standpoint and from the Hubert Davis standpoint about what's best for the team. And if Elliot Cadeau wants a guarantee of being a starting point guard, if you're Hubert Davis, do you move RJ out of that spot? Because that's RJ's spot. You know, he's been loyal to the program. He's stuck through this. And he's been pretty proven. He's an experienced guy. You take a 22-year-old RJ or an 18-year-old Cadeau in that kind of situation. So there are a lot of questions that must be answered. I have an idea that they have been answered for the most part.
Yeah.
And in time, we'll find out what that information is. But I think Carolina fans need to see the bigger picture when it comes to whether or not Cadeau comes, whether or not it's the best thing for all parties. So we'll see. Maybe he stays in high school one more year and he comes in with a mega class with Ian Jackson and that crew next year, which would be an incredible class, and they'll certainly have plenty of playing time given who will likely move on. So I think that is really where things are now. People keep talking about adding a wing. They're not going to add a wing. They brought guys in. We saw some stuff about Caleb Love returning. I mean, you have to be incredibly disconnected to think that would happen. So
no, that
ship left port a long time ago, and it ain't
best for
back.
both parties, I think, as well.
Exactly. So I think they end up with some scholarships open, which isn't a bad thing. You give them to a couple of walk-ons, and sometimes you don't need to have 13 scholarship guys because they all want to play. It's a different era now. Coach K, when I covered Duke for a long time, he rarely ever had 13 scholarship guys.
No.
And he still had guys leave a lot. So it's a lot when you think about it. If you go with 10 that you're pretty comfortable with, maybe an 11th guy, if you bring in the dude that plays behind Armando, that's my team. I'm rolling with it. Suddenly you have a couple injuries. Someone's academically ineligible, whatever the case may be. Then you're in a tough situation, but you still could be down to 8 guys that you trust. You know, and this will be a pretty talented group. I think the guys that they'll have on scholarship can all help them.
Yeah.
That'll be a key. So do you use a couple scholarships on guys that are outside the program right now who aren't going to help you? Does that help morale? Does that help chemistry? Or do you give them to a couple of current walk-ons and then add a couple more guys from the JV team and have a true Carolina culture? I think that's probably the direction they end up going. I do think that they're going to do everything they can to bring in somebody else, and they have a while. You know, there could be a dude who graduates this summer from some school, comes in as a grad transfer, and he doesn't have to hit the portal because he's a grad transfer. So he's not in the portal now, but he could be available, let's say, in July, and they bring him in. I wouldn't be surprised to see something like that happen, but that's their primary mission right now as far as adding to the roster.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how things shape up, and obviously keep it locked to TarIllustrated.com, because you said it might not be something that happens quickly. It may be something that's kind of dragged out throughout the summer, especially when you look at kind of who they're looking for, primarily with that backup 5. You got some, you would think you don't have to be in a major rush to find someone, and you're probably not going to find someone quickly, like you said, because you're asking somebody to come in and fill a very specific niche role in a time in college basketball where that, with transfers and money and NIL, it's not easy to find those kind of guys anymore. So very, very, very interesting to see how things shape up. And let me add this to the Cadeau situation. I do agree with you on it. I think a lot of fans have looked at this kind of black and white of, well, if it's Cadeau, you bring him in, and who cares who you push out of position. But for me, I've always said, if you're bringing Cadeau in to start at point guard, you're moving a guy like RJ, who's essentially been the point guard for 4 years at North Carolina, who's, Carolina's best teams in the last 4 years, the best times in the last 4 years. He's been the guy running the show. You're asking him to play a position he hasn't really played a lot in college basketball. Does he want to do that? Is that really what benefits the team, to have a true freshman point guard who is very talented, but there's no guarantees he comes in and is ready to, just take the league and country by storm like a lot of people are assuming he will. And then you're moving a guy in RJ who's been there for so long to a new position. Hey, go learn how to play the team. It's not as black and white as people are making it, in my opinion.
Yeah, sorry, I dive bombed you there.
No, you're good.
Let's not forget. Anyway. Let's not forget that regardless of whatever happens, you've got to. Hubert still has to build culture in a program.
Mm-hmm.
What does it do for your culture if you've basically told RJ you're our point guard, and RJ says I want to be the point guard? It's very important for him to be the point guard. Trust me, he wants to be on the koozie watch list and all that kind of stuff. So if you then say, "Nah, we're gonna have to bump you aside for this kid," I don't think that's great for culture.
No.
If it does happen, unless he's very agreeable to it, and we're speaking under the belief that, well, the knowledge and belief that he's entrenched as the point guard here. Also consider the fact that Boogie Flan's still out there, class of 24, and he plays where RJ went to school at Stepanak. So if you stand by RJ, especially in a period where so many kids left, and the perception is, what the hell's going on in North Carolina? Even though we know there was a lot more method to the madness of the last 2 months, you stand by a guy, that's going to help you down the road. That's better for current chemistry. That's better for building the culture, because RJ's a culture guy. He's a really good student. He's a good dude. He's a teammate. You want that voice being loud in that room. So you don't want to disrupt that. And if it means that you end up getting Boogie Flan, let's say, down the road, that helps too. Maybe they don't get him. But the bottom line is, I think it's important to stand by some of the guys that are there. They don't have this issue with Armando right now, but it could be an issue with RJ. And I think it's wise to stick with what you got if it comes down to one or the other.
Yeah.
Sometimes talent isn't the most important thing. And RJ's pretty damn talented, and he's pretty proven. And I think with the composition he'll have around him next year, I think he'll flourish a lot more, not just as a production guy, but as a game manager and distributor.
Agreed. I mean, I call me crazy, but I'd rather have a 4-year veteran guard running the show than a true freshman point guard who, like I said, I know he's really talented, but I think that's a bit risky, especially when you got to move a guy like RJ out of position essentially and go play something else. Not only risky for what could happen on the court, but risky for maybe how that goes down off the court in terms of chemistry.
Then you're pushing Cormac Ryan. You're pushing
to me it upsets the apple cart too much for something that's not guaranteed. I mean, if Elliot could, if someone had a crystal ball and said Cadeau's going to come in and average 18, 6, and 4, then you're like, okay, cool, let's do it. But
how about
how life works.
How about 10, 10, and 4?
Yeah, I mean, you take that any day of the week. You know what I mean? But
it would be hard to pass that up, and we get that, and I get that entirely. But I've been around this stuff for a long time, and I could tell you right now, I've been around some really talented teams that had a bad room and they weren't very good.
Yeah.
I've been around some teams that were not as talented, but they had a great room and they were better as a team. Hubert's job is to build a college basketball team, not to appease the fan base with the highly decorated roster, regardless of results. So that's what he has to show he could do. He's trying to show he can build a program, sustain a program, run a program. And the most important part of that, aside from talent, is also culture. You've got to have culture. So, and we're not saying it's one or the other. We're just saying if it comes down to one or the other, then I think status where they are right now with RJ is a smarter way to go for 23-24 season.
Agreed. Couldn't agree more. We'll wrap this podcast up on that. Guys, make sure you keep it locked at CarlosTrade.com. Big shout out to our sponsor again, MyPerfectFranchise.net. Again, go listen to the podcast link below. Go to Andy's website, MyPerfectFranchise.net. If you're interested, just contact him. I mean, just if you want to learn more, just contact him. You can do it through his website. You can give him a call, and he'll be happy to talk to you and give you a lot more information on exactly how this process works and what goes into it. So again, check him out, MyPerfectFranchise.net, and a big thank you to them for continuing to sponsor the podcast.
Tell them we sent you as well.
Yeah, I was about to say, if you do end up talking to him, make sure you tell him TarHeelIllustrated.com sent you. I've been Jacob Turner. He's been Andrew Jones, another episode of the UNC Basketball Show. Make sure you like the video below if you have enjoyed it. Make sure you hit that. Make sure you share it as well and subscribe to. And AJ, hit that notification bell, because I don't know if people have noticed, but we're doing this kind of daily drop thing. If you guys haven't noticed yet, we're essentially just dropping a podcast Monday through Friday. So guys, if you're not subscribed, subscribe. But if you don't have the notifications on, hit that notification bell so you know every single time we upload. So you know every single time one of these daily drops comes out. We'll be doing UNC basketball and UNC football shows throughout the offseason as well. So just a ton of content coming everybody's ways this offseason. AJ, no days off, as they say. Literally, daily drop.
I had one.
Days off.
I had one in April. One whole day off from midnight.
Pretty good.
Back to midnight again. One.
That's impressive, man. That had to feel nice, didn't it?
I'm going to get some in June because I'm going back up to DC area and
nice.
A concert, a baseball game. So I told Dina, I told my wife I'm not opening my laptop for a couple of days.
I love it, man. Hey, you throw that laptop, put a lock on it if you have to, so you can't open it up, man. Everybody needs a little getaway for
the Potomac River.
So. Awesome, man. Enjoy it. Well, hopefully we'll get there. Hopefully there won't be any, I know when you like to leave, things like to happen on the UNC front. So hopefully you'll get some free time, man. Won't have to open that laptop up. But again, if anything happens, you'll find it first here at TarIllustrated.com. Appreciate y'all watching. We'll see you on the next one. Thanks.